In the summer of 1994, Nickelodeon did something kind of brilliant. While most networks were winding down for the season, Nick at Nite was just getting started with a programming stunt they called Block Party Summer. The idea was simple: one classic sitcom all night long, every night of the week. Munster Mondays, I Love Lucy on Tuesdays, Bewitched Wednesdays. You get the picture. But what started as a fun summer gimmick became something bigger. Kids, teens, parents, people who hadn't grown up with these shows started tuning in religiously. Suddenly, I Dream of Jeannie and Welcome Back, Kotter were appointment television. So in this episode, we're asking, why did it work? Why did reruns from decades ago become a cultural event for a whole new generation? And what did Nick at Nite understand about nostalgia, comfort, and summer nights that made Block Party Summer feel like a moment we still remember today? This is the story of how classic TV got cool again, and why a network built for kids may have accidentally created one of the most memorable television experiences of the 90s. Let's play a memory.
So Steve, as 90s kids, we know how much our generation was known for being TV watchers. In the old sense, we had a lot more options than our parents' generation had, not quite as many options as the generations now had, but kind of this sweet spot where we were, for the first time, having dedicated channels that were designed just for us. So Saturday morning cartoons, plus we were getting access to these entire channels, things like PBS and the Disney Channel, and then, of course, Nickelodeon. But interestingly, the shows that were presented in the evenings were not necessarily designed for kids in the same way.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I can remember about watching Nick as a kid is when I think back on a lot of those shows, if you think about some of the bumpers that the network had, a lot of them had musical elements to it that were from the 50s, from the 60s. There was some doo-wop, there was some of that kind of influence, and it kind of broadened your horizon, I think, as a kid about like, what is music and what is this? Oh, that sounds kind of cool. So then when you see the transition to Nick at Nite, which came in the mid 80s, on its surface, going from programming that's just for kids to Nick at Nite shows from a previous generation, that's a pretty hard right. But I think for kids that throughout the course of the day watching Nickelodeon and getting some of these doo-wop influences, some of these 60s influences on the bumpers and on some of those musical elements, it wasn't as far-fetched as it became. And I think it also kind of piqued our generation's curiosity at what are these shows? Like, what is this?
I've made a personal decision to try better living through television, but to make it right, I've gotta have Nick at Nite.
I don't know about you, but I think I bought in immediately. I don't necessarily remember it being, a conscious decision. I think, as kids, like, we just watch what our parents put on, especially when we're very young. But I do wonder if subconsciously having some of those things that you mentioned, those musical cues, thinking about the people who were even making the children's programming were people who grew up in the mid-century. So, of course, they're working off of what they know and what's familiar to them. And we see a lot of mid-century influences in 90s culture. When we were born in the early to mid 80s, Nickelodeon as a channel already existed. It came into existence in the late 70s. So I love that it is almost a very squarely millennial era, even just the inception of Nickelodeon. But Nick at Nite itself was launched on July 1st, 1985. So shares a birth year with you, Steve, which I'm jealous of. And the concept was brilliant, simple. I'm wondering if they had any pushback when they first were introducing this to something that I think was designed to purely be a children's channel, but it was going to be a programming block on Nickelodeon that aired classic television during the evening and overnight hours, essentially serving as almost like a sub-channel, a channel within a channel.
There's no reason to say goodnight now that Nickelodeon's got a nighttime lineup of new shows, old favorites, and all-around great TV entertainment. We call it Nick at Night.
This is the greatest experience that can happen to a man.
And unlike daytime Nickelodeon, which was designed for us, for kids, Nick at Night was marketed more towards adults, especially baby boomers and some of the older Gen Xers with a deep affection for the shows that they grew up with. The style was, I think, similar to like those bumpers, Steve, that you had mentioned that were very, kind of like retro and ironic. It also had like some like sophistication to it.
Yeah, I think sophisticated is a really good word to use. I felt like they treated their shows like they were these cultural artifacts. Like every one of them mattered. Every one of them had a place. The lineup was set a certain way. The treatment that each show got in the promos or in the commercials leading up to its air, it definitely mattered. I think the promos kind of mimicked almost this. A lot of times it mimicked this black and white like newsreel. There were like jazz influences on them, film noir influences on them, and it added a little bit of depth. It added a little bit of importance to what you were watching. It didn't just feel like it was like, here's the next show in the rundown, and then we'll see you for the next commercial block. Like it felt like it was an event. I felt like they made a statement. These shows deserve to air in order, with each episode kind of getting its own special treatment. Here's the title of it. Here's the original air date. I can still see the title screens that they used to have, where, if there was a special guest that was in there, that was made clear about what it was. I can remember the run of I Love Lucy episodes when they went to California, right? And there were a lot of celebrities that were in those shows back in that run. They made special note of those. They deserve to have the closing credits play in the original manner that they were presented, not sort of like as they are today, like squeezed into the bottom corner of the screen while they're promoting something else for what's coming next. Like it felt like an event that was able to breathe. So, when we think about the things that we hold dear to us as we get older, I think it's the things that we allowed to have space, or that we're allowed to have space within our lives, that we reflect back on fondly. And I think Nick at Night really did a good job of allowing these classic shows to live like that in the lives of a new generation. So fast forward, it's the summer of 1994, about a decade into Nick at Night's run on Nickelodeon, and the network decided to launch something that would forever change the way 90s kids watch TV at night, especially in the summer. Enter Block Party Summer. Each weeknight was dedicated to a single beloved sitcom with a marathon-style lineup. They ran for about 8 weeks, depending on the year, usually starting around the Monday after the 4th of July and running through mid-August. The purpose? Create appointment viewing during the slower summer months while stoking intense viewer nostalgia. It made old shows feel new again and worth celebrating.
At the start of every summer, I still think of Block Party Summer. That's how formative this was for me. All of those nostalgic feelings come rushing back, and it's like it's layered nostalgia, because I'm nostalgic for being a kid in the 90s, but I'm also nostalgic for this era that we weren't even a part of, but that was so formative for us. The season in which this was presented to us was really key, because we were able to stay up late. The days and the nights all felt longer, and we were relaxed. So there was everything for me that was associated with Block Party Summer was fun and relaxing and exciting. And I think that they did a fantastic job in communicating that in the branding. I think even like just separate from the shows itself, the way that they presented this concept to us, all of the bumpers and the commercials, again, talking about like how much care that Nick at Night put into everything that went around these shows, not just like showing them in its entirety. It was so thoughtful, and something that just was not really done in very many other places.
there was this bonding period. We were discovering some of these things for the first time, but clearly our parents grew up in a generation where they had either seen these in reruns of their own or when they actually originally aired. So along with staying up later in the summer, which was really special for us, like these were shows that our parents grew up with. And we got to enjoy watching them together with them. So it was old programming, but for us, I mean, it was new, and it kind of created this really unique. I can remember moments where it was like, oh, wait till you see what happens in this episode, and you just waited with like anticipation because there was just something that you knew was going to be really cool.
For me, like that's the core of all of this, and it's why Block Party Summer is still something that I think about and that is so important to me, and it really is the way I was able to bond with my parents over it. And I think we need to remember that streaming didn't exist then. So I do think that there were certain episodes that our parents had seen a few times, but it's not like in the way now that people have seen Friends or Seinfeld and are like, quoting them and right. have seen every episode backwards and forwards. So I think from our parents' perspective, there was this little bit of, they were being nostalgic for their childhood and thinking, okay, I may have seen this one or two times, but also the excitement that they must have felt over introducing it to us, to their kids, and then really forging a new memory out of that. And this is something that really could have only happened in the 90s, where we had content to go off of that our parents remembered but didn't have complete access to. And the way that we have things now that are, just everything is accessible. But because everything is so accessible and you can watch it on demand, you can watch it over and over again, or, however you want to do it, there's something about that like the magic is being taken out of it. Like this was presented to us, you can watch it in these blocks and you can watch it together. And we're only doing this over the summer. All of those factors, I think, were the ingredients that made this just such a unique viewing experience. I can't think of anything else that's like it.
What I find so interesting about these types of like cultural moments or things that happen in our history is that like there's usually some kind of little like nugget or some type of like thing that occurs that like 20, 30 years from now or from that point, we look back on and we're like, oh, that kind of was like the start of something. And like, it so smacks you in the face now that we're like talking about it, that this was really like pre-binge era binging. Block Party Summer really mimicked the binge watching behavior that we associate with streaming today, but it occurred in real time. Like it was, it's like dial-up internet where it's like now it's like you have it in your pocket, but back then it was like you were online with your friends like in that moment, and now we're all kind of there, but we're not really there. Like foreshadowing moments that like none of us really kind of like saw because it didn't exist prior to that. There were reruns of things, but it wasn't in this style of viewing. And what we have now obviously didn't exist back then, but this really was the big bang moment for pre-binge era binging.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if it's the thing that I think it is for us anyway, like the thing that got us used to this concept of watching this same show over and over, like in one. I don't think that this existed before Block Party Summer, where you could watch more than even like back-to-back episodes. I think was a very rare thing in the 90s.
Yeah, it was rare. And you hear a lot of kids our age now talk about like core memory being unlocked, when something happens and you're just like, oh my God, this just opened up this whole flood of things. And I wonder where we like buried this in our brains. And then when it became a thing for streaming, it was just like, oh my God, I remember like it. And you just remember that sort of feeling. But this is really where I feel like it was birthed. So, Michelle, being the professional podcaster / YouTube stars that we are, we definitely were doing some research before recording and came across a great Substack by Jeff Sheldon. Shout out Chef Jeff Sheldon from Yesteryear Retro, who actually put together the entire year-to-year show lineup of Block Party Summer, which was incredibly helpful because like I think we remember what we remember, but you're just like, oh, they slid that show in there that year. I don't remember that at all, but definitely was there. So I thought it would be fun to kind of go back really quickly and look at the original 1994 Block Party Summer lineup and get your reaction. So we're going to start on Mondays, which is a very good place to start. It was the Mary Tyler Moore Show Mondays, although otherwise known as Mary Mondays. There was I Love Lucy on Tuesdays, Lucy Tuesdays. Wednesdays was Bewitched, Bewitched Be Wednesdays. I Dream of Jeannie on Thursdays, that was Jeannie Thursdays. And then Dragnet on Friday, and that was Sergeant Joe Fridays, which was
Love that.
Love a play on words. That's your day of the week. What is your reaction to what you might remember from that year, and where were you more inclined to watch on what night?
Okay. I think that I have forgotten that the Mary Tyler Moore Show is even part of Block Party Summer. I definitely think more Munster Mondays than Mary
Was that a show
Mondays.
that you were into at all in general with Mary Tyler Moore?
I did get into it, but I don't know if it was because of Block Party Summer or if it was some other year of it just being on Nick at Night. In my hierarchy of Nick at Night shows, it was, I'd say, like in the middle somewhere. It wasn't like must see for me. But yeah, I mean, I think you know this. I Love Lucy is my all-time favorite show. So that was the one I was showing up for without a doubt every week. And then I think the middle of the week was the highlight for me. It was like Lucy, Bewitched, Jeannie. Those were my three favorites. And then I think Fridays in general, but I barely remember watching Dragnet. I don't feel like I know a ton about it. And I think probably that makes sense that if our family was ever doing anything and wasn't home, it was probably on a Friday night. So I think
that definitely seemed like too adult for me, even though it was like made in the same era as every other show that was in the lineup. Like it was just like, I'm not gonna get the jokes. I'm not gonna get this. I'm not gonna get the dialogue. This isn't.
It seemed too serious, I think.
I know. I didn't really know at that point in time like where the humor was, and I've obviously come to figure out like there was probably a lot of dry humor and things like that were in it, but like it's not something that I realized that age 8 or 9 like what that was about. Yeah, I'm like you. I loved obviously I Love Lucy's as well. I kind of tend to skew in this lineup, at least for the first year, more Bewitched. I love Bewitched. I mean, big Agnes Moorehead fan, big Elizabeth Montgomery fan. Love the two Darrens, Dick York and Dick Sargent. I mean, I don't have a favorite. I think they were both great. I know there's a lot of people who probably have very strong opinions about that. I could care less. Love the show. I think for a kid, like there was definitely some element of like kid related stuff in it, with witchcraft and magic and stuff like that. So it clearly appealed to a younger audience. So yeah, love Bewitched on Wednesdays. That was definitely a go-to that first year. In its second year, I feel like it changed to the version that I probably most closely associate with Block Party Summer, which was the Munsters substituted out for Mary Tyler Moore. So it became Munster Mondays, Lucy Tuesdays, Bewitched on Wednesdays, Jeannie Thursdays, and then we introduced Welcome Back, Kotter on Fridays, which was an awesome, hilarious show that obviously impacted, I think, the culture of TV a lot and a lot of careers as well with Travolta and so on down the line. What stands out from you in terms of, I know you had that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday sort of vibe, but what stands out to you about the changes on Mondays and Fridays?
All right, so I have a specific memory of seeing commercials for Munster Mondays, have never heard of the show The Munsters before, and having a conversation with my parents, more my dad. I remember saying like, is this going to be like a scary show? Like really having no concept of what the show is, which is like a comedy, and him having to explain it to me like, no, it's not what you're thinking. This isn't like
the joke's on them.
Yeah. But I think at like age, so I was like maybe 11 or 12 when which I'm saying that and it sounds old, but like it's a concept. Like that's not, when we watch shows as kids, we watch them for face value. This was really like a conceptual show. As you said, like the joke was on them as a family, like that they didn't know that people saw them as scary. They thought everyone else was weird. I remember really, once I knew that I wasn't going to be afraid of it, getting really into it. And still to this day, I think one of the best TV theme songs of all time.
Yeah, hands down, completely agree. It's funny as you go through the years, because most everything, I would say the core of the block party stayed the same. Jeannie stayed in there, might have moved a day. Lucy stayed in there, pretty much stayed on the same day. Bewitched stayed in there. You subbed out some stuff. You brought in the odd couple. Certain days got mixed around. 1998, things got a little weird.
Yeah, I'm looking at this lineup. What is this?
Yeah,
First of all,
so
it's
this-
no longer 5 days.
Right, we threw in a Sunday, and we moved Lucy to Sunday, which was that was something. Laverne and Shirley got bumped to Mondays. The Brady Bunch got introduced and was on Tuesdays. The Wonder Years, which I love, was Wednesdays. I would still watch Wonder Wednesdays if it was a thing today.
Same.
Happy Days got added on Thursdays, and then for funsies, I guess they put the Rugrats on Fridays, and that was something that was definitely not a Nick at Night sort of thing, but maybe trying something that summer.
I'm not okay with this.
Yeah, no.
I feel like this is like a blaring hole in block party summer. Like
Some higher up at Nickelodeon / Nick at Night was just like, we're doing this, and like it just completely ruined the block party. Like nobody was going to the block on Fridays.
Are you not insulted by this? Because the way I'm reading this is, what if we tried to get more kids to watch Block Party Summer? And we're like, no, we're already here and we're enjoying what you have. You don't need to lure us in with like kids programming. We can watch this during the day.
Yeah, especially for a show that was probably on like 6 times a day, like before Block Party started. Like, why are we picking this? Yes, I'm incredibly insulted by Rugrats being a part of this. Get that off of there. That does not belong on that list. What made Block Party Summer so like unique was the bumpers and the commercials, because they definitely had that sort of summer barbecue, summer at the beach type vibe and feel to it. They really set the tone for what was to come each night.
As time went on, they got a little bit more sophisticated. I don't know if it was maybe in 96 or 97. They even had like it almost looked like they like built a set and had like actors like pretending to kind of embody the spirit of what a block party summer is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I brought along some of the commercials and bumpers from Block Party Summer. Why don't you click on the very first one in 1994? We can get a reaction to what we're seeing here.
This 4th of July, Nick at Night declares its independence with Vertivision. It's the revolutionary programming system that turns old-fashioned horizontal schedules on their heads. You'll get 6 episodes in a row every night. Mary Mondays, Lucy Tuesdays, Bewitched Wednesdays, Jeannie Thursdays, and Sergeant Joe Fridays. Big blocks of classic TV. It's Mary, Lucy, Sam, Jeannie, and Joe as you watch Nick at Night's Block Party Summer in Vertivision.
I mean, I think that it hit on everything that you mentioned earlier in terms of having these mid-century influences, but also kind of playing off this idea of being very self-aware that they were presenting this very new idea. And I love how they were able to combine those two things. It's the guy who's doing the voiceover, the graphics that they're using, even what they're calling it, they're calling it this thing called like
Vertivision.
What is that?
I love it. I know. We took the original beta for binging was Vertivision, which I'm really glad it's become binging. But yes, I love that they created like their own term for taking this block of programming, which is typically a horizontal block of programming, and turning it and saying we're doing all of these on Monday and all of the same shows on Tuesdays and calling it its own name is just so cool.
I love it. I love how much thought that they put into that. And I mean, you can't watch that commercial and not get excited. They're presenting this concept. They're getting you excited. They're giving each of the shows like their each little moments and focusing on the stars in each of them. And I feel like it's, it's very clear as to like what this is. I mean, the concept, I think that this is another thing that's like such a win, is that this concept is it's revolutionary, but it is also at its core just a very simple concept.
Yeah. So let's jump to 1995 one now. Cue that one up here. Let's get our reaction.
Hungry for some classic TV? Sure! good. Well, Nick at Night's Block Party Summer is serving up big, zesty 6-episode blocks of classic TV, back to back, and in their original order. Blocks so thick you can watch them with a fork. Munster Mondays, Lucy Tuesdays, Bewitched Wednesdays, Genie Thursdays, and Cotter Fridays. Don't miss this rare opportunity to enjoy well-done shows on your favorite medium, television.
Pretty clever, eh, Mr. Cotter?
Nick at Night's Block Party Summer, every weeknight all summer long.
All right, so I love this one probably the most of all of them, and there's like for so many reasons. One of them is that they're like right there with what the brand is for Block Party Summer, right? The visuals are clear, the music, you have this like surfer Frankie and Annette type like music that's there. I was immediately drawn to, and it was like a flashback, was like the graphics that they used, the cartoon character kind of graphic guy that was there at the start of it and at the end of it really reminded me of what I remember seeing on early Nickelodeon. So I can see how a kid that might have been seeing that commercial somewhere around like 7 o'clock at night, you know, like when the programming for Nickelodeon was done for the day, it was like, oh, what's this? Like, I want to know what this is all about, right? And it kind of was that gateway to pull you in. Of all the years that this was a thing, this is what I remember about Block Party Summer.
I also really remember the graphic of the illustrated heads going down each vertical line as they called out, reminding us what's on each night. If we were bringing this back for like a 1-year thing, which ones are we picking?
Are we picking off the shows that were in the Block Party and we're just cobbling our own versions of it together?
I think we have to use that as a parameter. Like, we can't be adding in other Nick at Night shows that were not part of Block Party Summer. We'll go with this list, including Rugrats, and pick our ideal Monday through Friday. Forget the Sunday business. Sunday is not part of Block Party Summer. Okay. So 5 shows. Okay. And what the day has, obviously, is going to be important for each one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, so I'll go first. I would say, for me, I would go Munster Mondays, Lucy Tuesdays, Brady Bunch Wednesdays, Wonder Years Thursdays, Cotter Fridays.
Wow. So you bumped Bewitched.
I did.
Which you claimed was your favorite.
Well, in that block, in 1994, I would definitely say I would skew more like that would be my day. But if you're telling me I could cobble together what I want, yeah, I think I bumped Bewitched for those 5.
Wow. Okay. I respect it. Mine's going to be a little bit different, but I feel like you have... Wait, did you keep Lucy on Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like that's
all right. You're good then. Okay. We can still be friends.
Okay.
All right. All right. So I think I'm also going Munster Mondays and Lucy Tuesdays. I really like the Bewitched Wednesdays, so I'm keeping that in place. I'm keeping Genie on Thursdays, and I'm making Wonder Years be my Friday show. I feel like I watched the Wonder Years before Block Party Summer. I think I watched it when it was like airing. So, especially considering like I would always skip the Friday shows. I think I would have made it more of a priority to watch if Wonder Years had been on.
Giving yourself a reason to watch on a Friday now because right. I respect that. So what is the legacy and cultural impact of Block Party Summer? Well, what we learned today was that kids in the 90s learned about black and white TV and laugh tracks and vintage ad jingles through Nick at Night. And it brought us back in time to an era we hadn't experienced, while also bringing us forward to an era we had yet to experience, inspiring the modern programming blocks that we know so well today.
I think that we as 90s kids are known for being an overly nostalgic generation. And I think that Nick at Night and Block Party Summer are ingredients in this. And what's cool is, unlike our parents who had to depend on cable TV to revisit some of the things that they loved as kids, we now have full access and we have the enthusiasm to go back and find the things that meant the most to us as kids.
Nick at Night didn't just broadcast the shows, they celebrated them. And Block Party Summer wasn't just programming, it was presentation. It respected its audience's intelligence while celebrating television history with a wink. The Block Party Summer series was one of the first efforts to gamify reruns and turn passive viewing into a celebratory, almost ritualistic event. In a pre-streaming era, this was nostalgia with a broadcast pulse. It shaped a generation's sense of retro cool. So thank you, Block Party Summer. We miss you.